Hello, everyone, and welcome to Imagine Spotlights. We're here today on behalf of the ADA and Beyond Type 1 Collab to continue this amazing interview series. Every week, all throughout Imagine Camp, we're chatting with an inspiring person living with diabetes. They're going to share their experiences and insights with you and help us all show what it means to live beyond our diagnoses and how important it is to get connected and find community with others affected by this disease, which is, after all, why we're all here and why all of you campers are watching here. And I know Korey is there watching as well, as we can see. My name is Rob Howe, and I am the creator of Diabetics Doing Things. I've lived with type 1 diabetes for over 16 years now. I'm coming up on my 17th diaversary at the end of this year. And I like to call myself the host with the most insulin on board. So I've even got some IOB right now during this interview. And today I'm very excited to introduce my special guests. We're chatting with Samantha Stocking. I'm going to call you Sam, if that's okay with you. I don't, nobody calls me Robert, so I totally understand where you're coming from. And you live with type 1 diabetes, and you've actually been making a ton of waves on the internet with your partner in crime there, Korey, your Diabetes Alert Dog. So otherwise, I'll let you kind of take it away. Sam, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Sam. This is Korey. I'll tell you about Korey first. He's a 2-year-old Labrador Retriever. He is my Diabetic Alert Dog, and I've been training him myself with help from another trainer here. I live in Germany right now. I moved here about 6 years ago. I'm half German. I grew up in California, though, and after college, I was like, let me just try seeing the world, and I came here and met my partner and haven't left, but we actually are moving to Illinois in August. So we're really excited to be heading back to the States, and we're really hoping we can meet some of our fans maybe in person. And yeah, we're really excited. So that's about me.
Well, I not only am a fan of yours, but I got to say I am a fan of Korey's as well. And as the videos of the two of you,
here.
Right, that's right. You're just translating. This interview is really between me and Korey. We stand a good boy for sure over here. So I want to thank you both for being here at Imagine Camp. Let's kind of start from the beginning, and that's a place that I often like to start with diabetes interviews. Is let's go back to diagnosis. What do you remember about that time, and how you felt, and what it was like for you and your family?
Yeah, so I was 4. So I've been living with diabetes for 25 years, I guess. It's a long time. I remember we were on the East Coast visiting. We have like a summer house there with our whole extended family. And I remember being really thirsty all the time, going to the bathroom all the time, waking up at night, having to pee every 5 minutes. And, I remember all the adults being really worried about me. And then my aunt is a nurse, and she said to my mom, you know what, you guys fly home. I think she has diabetes. And so we were on the plane. I remember being on the plane and having to go to the bathroom, but it was during takeoff and we weren't allowed to get up, and having to really hold my my bladder as a 4-year-old with those high blood sugars. And it turns out then we went to the hospital and I had type 1. And yeah, it was 25 years ago. Crazy.
Man, when you say it out loud like that, it really does become real. 25 years with diabetes is congratulations on a life with diabetes. I know that's such a heavy burden to carry sometimes, but I'm glad you get to share it with your friend Korey there. I'd love to talk a little bit about when Korey came into your life, and you mentioned that you train him yourself. I'd love to hear a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, so about 2 years ago, Korey came into my life. I was having a lot of issues with blows at night. So I have a Libre 2, but I didn't hear, and I still don't hear the alarms at night because I'm a really deep sleeper. And especially when I'm low and I'm sleeping, I'm dead to the world. So my boyfriend, we had a couple of really bad scares where he leaves before I do for work, and he couldn't, almost couldn't wake me up, and he had to Korey, he had to like shake me awake and, like force feed me like sugar in my mouth to get me awake. And so I spoke to my doctor here because I didn't know in Germany, do they have service dogs? I've never seen one. And he said he knew a woman who does like service dog training, and I got in touch with her, and I spoke to my job obviously about it first because there's no point getting a service dog you can't bring to work. And yeah, everyone was really supportive and really on board, and so that's sort of how we got Korey in our lives. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for many people, especially when you've lived with diabetes for a long time, there can be a lot of difficult discussions around hypo unawareness, especially with partners. And you mentioned that you had some scares. Would you be open to sharing, a little bit about what those conversations with your partner were like when you were navigating the time which led you to Korey?
Yeah, I mean, when I moved in here with my partner, you know, it was different than we were sort of a little bit long distance. And then really moving in with someone and explaining like, this is really like my life with diabetes. Like, I had shown him my glucagon, but it was really like, okay, this is where it is. And if this happens, you need to know what to do. And we did have a couple times where like I was really low, and I did have him give me like a mini dose of glucagon. And just having those discussions like, okay, well, that was really scary. Like I couldn't really wake you up. I'm glad I knew what to do. But now what do we do? Because we can't live our whole lives like so terrified. I was scared to sleep for a few weeks at a time because I didn't want it to happen again. And you don't want to I don't like putting like a burden on other people with my diabetes. I feel like a lot of us feel that way. And so it was really eye-opening, and it was like, okay, well, what can we do to help both of our lives, and just so we have an extra security blanket, with diabetes, because there are so many crazy factors in there every day.
Truly too many inputs. It's there's just so many things to juggle, and like you said, there's also that psychosocial emotional component where you're sharing the burden with somebody else, which can feel really, to me at times invasive. Like I don't, having somebody else to help make those decisions. So how did you and your partner land on a diabetes alert dog? Obviously you mentioned getting introduced to the woman who trains them, and what was that like? And as well as like learning to train a service animal, I'm sure it comes with its hurdles and challenges.
Absolutely. Well, I knew about diabetic alert dogs from my roommate in college. She was also diabetic, and she had a diabetic alert dog who lived with us. You're smelling the cheese, Korey. Um, and so I knew about them from there, and I also knew people from my diabetes camps as a kid, like through social media. I saw that they also had diabetic alert dogs. So I've had dogs my whole life. So I was like, well, how does that work, in a different country? I don't know. And my partner's never had a dog before. So it was a discussion like, would you be okay with us getting a dog? Like, is that something, I would basically be handling all the training, and the dog would basically be with me all the time anyways. Um, but he was really open to it. He was like, yeah, I've never had a dog. That's great. Let's get one. Sounds awesome. And we just kind of went from there. And our trainer is really great. At this point now, like I basically do everything with Korey myself now that I know what to do. And it definitely has its challenges. I mean, it's a lot of time. It's a big time commitment to train your own service dog. But it's worth it in the end. And like, I don't know, he's my best friend. He's with me all the time, every day, everywhere. So yeah.
Well, that was kind of going to be my next question, because my wife and I also have dogs, and they are not service animals, and they are still a lot of work. But I'd love to know how you and Korey's relationship works. Like you said, you're together all the time. There's a lot of training and reinforcement. But let's kind of get into more of the alert side of things. What happens when he senses that your blood sugar is low or high or out of range?
Right. So whenever it's low, he will boop me with his nose on my leg. And then whenever it's high, he'll twist in a circle. Our high alerts are not totally down yet. We're still, getting there. But for the most part, I'm more worried about Lowe's anyway.
Yep.
And Lowe's are really like, he's really into it. You know, he's like, yeah, mom, you're low. Hello, you're low. You're low. Give me the cheese. Yeah, like here, boop, boop, boop. He's really into it. I think I can get him to show you. Can you show a nose? Can we do a nose? Come here. Let's see if I can sort of get my leg up. Can you nose? Nose? Good boy. Good boy. Yay!
Oh, look at him go.
There you go.
I'm glad that the professional, like technical term is boop, because, you know, that's how we would describe it in my house. Like, so I'm glad that that's a clinical, you know, we're going to refer to all low alerts as boops from for the rest of this interview. That's excellent.
What I say.
That's so cool. And you mentioned that you also wear a Libre 2, but that when you're sleeping deep and you have a hypo event, that it's very difficult for you to wake up. I have seen your viral video. So I saw your video when you put that and shared that with the world. What kind of response did you get? And when you connected with people with diabetes and you're on platforms like Beyond Type 1 and the ADA Give Us Here, what's it like to be able to have those conversations with people?
Well, I was actually really excited because, people don't really understand what type 1 is. They've mostly heard of type 2, and it's like, oh, my grandpa has that. And I got a lot of, those comments like, well, just don't eat sugar and, like try some cinnamon. I was like, well, that's not really, that's not how this works. If it was so easy, I think there wouldn't be millions of us struggling with this disease. I got a lot of those comments, but I did get a lot of support from the type 1 community. And that was just like, I was like, this is my moment now. I want to seize this and get the ball rolling and bring more awareness to this. Like, people don't really understand what type 1 is and what it's like to live with type 1 and the struggles that we go through like every day. So I don't know, I was actually really excited, and I was like, cool, I can finally use this disease in a positive way and not just have it be something I have to live with. It's something I can help show the world, like, I don't know, what's the word? Like empathize. So people get what we go through, are more sympathetic to type 1,
Definitely. And I mean, I think just normalizing things that are scary, like hypo unawareness or low blood sugars at night, I think, those are normal things for people with diabetes, and they have to be addressed in different ways. And as we know, not one size fits all with any kind of diabetes, but especially, with type 1 that you and I both live with. And, for some people, they're able to manage it one way, and others need, to find what works for them. So for people who are watching this and who may have been curious or looking into, a diabetic alert dog, what would you tell them? Or, what are some things that you and Korey have learned along the way?
Well, I think that I would tell them it's, from my side, definitely worth it to have a diabetic alert dog. Not only because he alerts, but because it gives me more peace of mind, which then lowers my stress, which makes my blood sugars better, So there's that whole like psychological component to it. And I don't know, I think diabetic alert dogs are fantastic. Just looking at you. Yeah, talking about you. I highly recommend them. And I think, it might not be the best solution for everyone to get a dog, obviously, but if you can and you want to, it's definitely possible. And I think it's possible to train your own dog, as I've learned. You don't have to spend tons and tons of money on, an already trained dog, when you can, if you have the time and the effort, like, you can do it yourself. So
I'd love to talk to you about that because, maybe this is not diabetes related, but I have 2 Shiba Inus, and Shiba Inus are notoriously difficult to train because they know everything, and they don't need people to survive. They're just we're just they're caretakers basically. So what is the training regimen like for you and your partner, and how much time and effort are you developing with or dedicating to time spent with Korey to make sure that he's up to speed and keeps all of his training in line?
Yeah, so when we first started training, it was a lot more intense. He was just 2 months old. It was like right when we got him, we started training. So, it was more basic stuff. And then you start with like a little bit of the diabetes training. but it was definitely much more intensive just because we did it. I mean, I did it every day, you know, I would say about an hour, like split up throughout the day because like puppies can't concentrate for a full hour. um, and I mean, the older that he got, like the more complicated the training got, like because the better then he gets with like commands are you start very simple and then you build on it. So it was like once they have the simple command down, then you can add in the next steps. So it was just building on that. And it's definitely every day you have to do something. And we met with our trainer in the beginning, I think 2 to 3 times a month for a couple hours at a time. And then as the rest was sort of like homework for me that she would give me. And then we would check in and then see, okay, what's working, what's not, what else do we need to add or what can we change? And it was just going from there. And I think with COVID happening, we had a lot less contact and we weren't not able to meet as often as before. So it really did fall mostly on my shoulders then to do everything. So we would have phone calls with her, but of course, like we couldn't meet in person. So it's very different when you're sort of figuring it out more on your own. Yeah, I think, I don't know.
Yeah, it's so interesting how, life with diabetes makes you, I guess, more dedicated to more like tasks that kind of going through the same type of things day in and day out, just because that's sort of how we have to live and operate. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's so interesting to see how much ground you can cover with a service animal, even on your own. Like you don't have experience training a service animal. This is your first go at it. And as we saw, Korey he's right on the money. So you mentioned, connecting with other people and, sharing some positives about diabetes. How important is it for you after 25 years? And, you mentioned going to camp previously and connecting with other people with diabetes. Like how important has that been in your life and your journey with diabetes to just, connect with other people and really normalize what everyday life is like for living with type 1?
Well, for me, I think meeting other people with type 1 is the most exciting thing. You're like, hey, me too. I don't know, you just feel less alone. And I think as a kid, especially, it was really, really important for me to go to camp and just meet other kids who had diabetes because I didn't know anyone as a kid, like in my hometown, who had it. And you did sometimes feel kind of alone. And like those summer camps were just the most amazing thing because hey, everyone is like you and you're not the weird kid who has to sit out because they have a low or has to go and at the time I wasn't on a pump, take a shot because your blood sugar is high, all that stuff. Like really, those camps were amazing. And one of my, my college roommate was actually one of my friends from diabetes camp. So it was just like those long lasting friendships that people just get you in a different way than like normal people.
Yeah, the normies can only know, so much, right? Living with diabetes is just such a task. It's such a challenge. And how cool is that though, that your friends from camp became your college roommate? That's one of the consistent things that I see. Almost every person I talk to still is in touch with some of their friends from diabetes camp. It really does kind of make you a friend for life. So that's very cool. So as we kind of wrap up, I'd love to ask you just sort of our kind of go away question. What advice do you have for people at home who are watching this, living with diabetes and living with T1D?
My advice is that I know some days can be really hard and some days can be great. And I think the most important thing is to just keep fighting the battle and keep going, even on those days where you maybe are lying on the floor with a really bad low and you just don't want to get up. And you got to fight through it because there are good days and you're not alone. I think that's really the most important thing is that there are people out there with type 1 and you're not alone. And we have a whole community. And that's actually the greatest thing about the internet now is that like you can go on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, everything, and you can find like communities of support and people like you, even if you don't personally know someone. Like I've gotten lots of advice from a Facebook group I'm in with diabetics and read tips there from other people. And it's just like, makes you feel less alone. So you're not alone. We're out there. Just keep your eyes open and keep your head up.
it's so funny. I totally agree. Like you were like, hey, yeah, me too. Like you pointed something, you see somebody in the wild or, at the coffee shop or, on vacation or anywhere on college campuses or at your school. And you're like, oh my gosh, like me too. And you can kind of cover so much ground with a person just by saying, I understand what you're going through, like just pat on the back and keep moving. And I'm very glad that as we kind of emerge to getting back to gathering and events, that the positive things that are going to come out of that are people with diabetes connecting more with each other. So thank you for the time today as well. And thank you, Korey. I know you got bored of me talking, so you had to go take a nap over there. But I appreciate all that you do for people with diabetes and for being here at Imagine Camp. And thank you all who are watching at home for tuning in and being here. We hope you are enjoying Imagine Camp, and stay tuned for more awesome Imagine Spotlights with people like my friend Sam here. We're here every week as a part of the ADA and Beyond Type 1 Collab. So thank you guys so much for joining. And thank you, Sam. I really appreciate your time, especially making time to connect all the way in Germany. I know that the time changes can be kind of difficult to coordinate. So thank you so much.
Thank you. We're really excited to have been here, and yay.